Welcome to another episode of The Writer's Life, the place where you get the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, anything you want from my particular writer's life, and you also get the truth. Please smash that like button, hit the bell for notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. I think we're moving on up. I think we're moving on 1,200 subscribers or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're getting there. So today I have a little story, and what prompted me to tell this story was a friend of mine sent over a podcast that Ringo Starr just did, I think, a couple days ago, and it was really illuminating. He's talking about the beginning of the Beatles and all this sort of stuff, and how he got to be a Beatle and all this stuff, and how he was like a real professional even before he became a Beatle. And how he used to actually heckle the Beatles when they were on stage, when they had another drummer. Anyway, it's a great video. It's a great podcast. Ringo sounds younger than guys my age. I mean, he just sounds terrific. Anyway, he reminded me of something I knew years ago and I had forgotten about. That songs like "She Loves You," "I Want to Hold Your Hand," "Please Please Me," were actually released in the United States under the Swan Records and/or VJ labels in 1963. And George Harrison visited his sister in 1963, late 62, early 63, that type of thing, after the songs had been released anyway. And he went to visit his sister, I think, in Kansas. I could have the state wrong, but it was in the West. And, nobody knew who the hell he was, right? He's just this kid, 19, 20 years old. And he actually got on stage and played with a band, a country western band. And that's where he first saw his first Rickenbacker 12-string, I think. Anyway, I'm getting off point here. But George went around to a bunch of music stores and record stores, something they don't have anymore. And asked them, do you have the Beatles' new record? And they were like, who are the Beatles? I'm like, no. And he's like, oh boy. Because he also knew at that time that their new manager, Brian Epstein, was planning a trip for them to go to America and play there. So, he went back to England and immediately relayed this bad news to the lads that, like, our music is not catching on in the United States, so the trip to America is going to suck, right? But then everything changed, and they got a new label, and they were able to be distributed on Capitol Records, and they got the fortuitous Ed Sullivan gig, and then everything was history. And they got some DJs on their side, and like everything blew up. So all those songs, like "She Loves You" and "Please Please Me," all those great classic songs were re-released. And this time, they all skyrocketed to number one. Like they were fighting each other for the number one spot on the Billboard, How cool a thing is that? And it just got me to thinking, just because you publish a book now and it doesn't do a thing, that doesn't mean that years down the road, months or years down the road, it's not going to explode in popularity. For example, my very first commercially published novel, published by Delacorte, was a novel I wrote called The Innocent. My editor at the time required that I change the title because another author, I think at a sister publisher like Bantam or something like that, had a book called The Innocent. Now it turns out like there's a million books called The Innocent, right? But be that as it may, he suggested the title As Catch Can. And me being like 30 or whatever, 31, I was like, okay, you're giving me a lot of money, so, okay. And like, I would tell people the new name of the book coming out, and they'd be like, As Can what? And I'd say As Catch Can. And even if they got it, they would then, in their head, they would think Catch as Catch Can, which actually was another book by somebody else. So immediately, I'm behind the eight ball. Then they come out with the cover. The cover is terrible. I wish I had a copy sitting right here. I could show it to you, but I don't. Anyway, you can't see the title, you can see the name, my name, you can't see anything. You know, it's just it was a wreck. And later on, they all admitted that it was a botched cover. The reason for all this is because Delacorte at the time was going through some real problems. They were about to get swallowed up by Bantam. Speaking of Bantam, and everybody was afraid of their job, and the editor-in-chief was fired, and it was a mess. It was a total mess. So anyway, As Catch Can sells humbly. My second novel in the contract is brought out in paperback only, because of course it's my fault, right? That As Catch Can sells humbly. It's my fault, right? And that's it. Contract over. So because of that experience, I have trouble getting published for the next few years. And it isn't until a few years, let me see, I don't know. Anyway, a number of years later, half a dozen years later, something like that, I get picked up by a small press, a maverick small press that is really catching on with ebooks and stuff like that. I managed miraculously to get the rights back to As Catch Can. And the second novel, Godchild. These are both in the Marconi PI series, by the way. I changed the title back to The Innocent. We publish it with a smoking cover. Smoking cover. Doesn't it go to like the number 2 spot in the overall Kindle marketplace? Amazon Kindle Marketplace. Next to the only thing that was stopping it from going to number 1 was the Lincoln Lawyer, which was a major motion picture at the time, right? By John Grisham. And the book sold well over 100,000 copies in like 4 to 5 weeks. And on its heel, Godchild was also released. That sold like 25 or 30,000 copies. And then The Remains was released. That sold like 30,000 copies. And then these books got picked up in a major deal by Thomas and Mercer. So like everything fell back into place. But only after a few grueling years. But it just goes to show you that sometimes you can just take a product, an intellectual property, be it music or be it a book, revamp it, get it back out, and boy, it can just explode in popularity. And I'd actually like to get a hold of The Innocent and Godchild again from Thomas and Mercer if I could, and revamp it once again and get it back out there and see it explode again. Anyway, this one went way too long. Thanks for listening, and smash that like button again, subscribe, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.